Welcome back to the Crash the Pond podcast. And this is a podcast being recorded as the Ducks, these Ducks, those Ducks, Los Patos.
Who?
Los Patos have won 6 games in a row. This is the 4th time this has happened, Jake, since the 2015-16 season that the Ducks have won 6+ games in a row. The Ducks haven't lost a game played in the NHL since we last recorded. When's the last time that happened?
I think.
Maybe the last time we recorded.
We recorded last Monday, October 30th, and
They have not lost.
I don't think they've lost since 2 weeks ago. Yeah. This is now the 3rd podcast that the Ducks have. No, maybe second. Whatever. The last 2 podcasts the Ducks have been on a winning
sounds
streak.
right.
Yeah,
Two sounds right.
2 sounds right. So let's go with that because the last loss would have been on October 22nd, and we recorded on the 23rd. So, So the Ducks are streaking right now. They're a vibe, one could say.
They are Vibes HC, and it's so funny and interesting seeing kind of people waking up, and by people I mean national media, outlets that don't usually talk about the Ducks, kind of wake up to this team, wake up to some of the great players that are giving standout performances to start the season. And I think you just have to kind of let it wash over. You have to appreciate it because it just shows that what this team is doing right now is, if nothing else, it's just fun.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was at both games this past week, and I was able to go to the game on Wednesday with good friend of the pod, Olaf, and then went on the weekend with my dad and left the game with my dad, and actually got a text from him last night today saying that's the most fun he's had at a game in years.
Wow.
And probably pre-COVID was probably the last time him and I have had that much fun at a game, where it was honestly like sitting there, not only just like rooting for the team, rooting for them to come back, all that different type of stuff, just being that genuinely entertained at a game. Like, the Ducks they've almost become this little darling of the NHL. Like, you hear, I mean, for instance, I think I was listening to What Chaos today, and Pete Blackburn and DJ were talking about how the Ducks are the vibes team of the year. They're just the fun team this year. There are just so many other people. I mean, you had this just kind of goes with it, but the Micah puts out on Hockey Viz the wildness for teams, and the quadrants are it goes like blah, score early and coast, pure bliss, go down easy, win ugly, endless pain, lose scrappy, and then we may win but I may die. The Ducks are the closest team to the we may win but I may die.
Yeah,
which just simply means that the games are going to be entertaining. Who knows if they're going to win, but you're going to be entertained.
Yeah, I think that as the season has progressed, and this is now just general thoughts, the Ducks have kind of strayed a little bit from that rock solid defensive identity.
Yeah.
And so they've had some of these games where they've just had to survive. And keep in mind, folks, like, we are still in a tiny, tiny sample. So a couple games is going to skew things. It's going to make things look worse. A couple great games is going to make them look better. But I think the kind of key to it, the key for all of it to me, and this is going to sound cheesy, and I apologize, plug your nose if you don't like the smell of cheese, but this is a team. Like, there is an identity. They are playing together. They are playing to a system. They are playing, I think, to their coach's image of what this could be: intense, dedicated, all 3 zones engaged. And there's just so many different players that you could point to and say that they embody that kind of ethos. But that's the biggest thing to me. And honestly, this is something that we have talked about so many times in this podcast for years now, is just, man, can we just see a team that has an identity? And I think the Ducks have one. They have an identity, and it's just a joy to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, on the perspective of the team from a global sense of things, you even heard, I listened briefly because I was curious what Frank Saravelli would say about the team on the DFO show today. And him and Jason Gregor were talking about it, and Frank brought up yet again the fact that you're not going to have 80 some odd point seasons from Mason McTavish and from Ryan Strome. Like, that's just 90 point seasons. And I agree, you're not going to get that. But Jason Gregor actually pushed back with a really good point that we've been bringing up. Trevor Zegras has 2 points in 11 games. He's not going to be an 18 to 20 point player. Like, that's the thing with this team that I think is so promising overall, is that you're getting huge contributions from that second line, from the Vetranos, from the McTavish, from the Strome. You're getting depth contributions also throughout the lineup. You're seeing Sam Carrick with the 2-goal game. 2-goal game last night, and the fourth line showing up in different ways with that. And so you're seeing every line have a little bit to go off of, and that is something that's really, really beneficial. And at some point, Trevor Zegras, Leo Carlsson, and Troy Terry will start putting the puck in the net. And that's going to happen probably around the time Mason McTavish, Frank Vetrano, and Ryan Strome cool off, because they're not going to score at this rate. They're just simply not. It's not what's in their game. It's not where it's at. I would be very, very surprised if all of them end up over a point per game. But you ride this point production while you can, and especially while another line is not going. And I think it's really, really beneficial to this team to have this right now, especially when other lines are going cold. And you're also seeing the emergence of Pavel Mintyukov become, I don't know if I would say a front runner, but a name that's certainly in the conversation currently for the Calder Trophy. One that's being thrown around by a lot of different people, and that is not just kind of us in the Ducks sphere saying maybe he's a sneaky candidate. You had Greg Wyshynski in his article today talking about kind of way too early trophy predictions, where he pulled a bunch of people from the PHWA, and within that article, I mean, Pavel Mintyukov got an honorable mention. They had Connor Bedard, which I get. It's 11 games. You're kind of going with the safe bet there. But you had Mintyukov there as an honorable mention, which just goes to show how impressive he has been so far.
Yeah, I mean, you said a whole bunch of things there. So
I did. Sorry.
I'm going to try to pick up from the beginning, but
go for it.
You're telling me Frank Saravalli said something incomplete or inaccurate about the Ducks team? You're telling me that happened?
Yep.
Wow, I can't believe it.
Yep.
I don't want to spend too much time on that.
Nope.
Because it's honestly
been beat to death.
Well, it's been beat to death by you, to be fair.
Fair.
In our Discord.
Yeah.
But my brief comment on it, because I feel like people are really piling on. I've seen people on Twitter, bashing Frank Saravalli, blah, blah. And here's the thing. Yes, Frank Saravalli has had bad opinions in the Ducks that are incomplete or inaccurate or show that he's not watching the games. But folks, we don't have to magnify it. Like, it's just bad takery. Like, let it just die a quiet death. And here I am giving it a voice, but I wanted to address it because it's just been so talked about. And I will say that, Frank Saravalli, being the president of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, should probably at least watch the games more in depth before having these opinions about the team, about specific players that are so hardline. And that's all I have to say. Like, I'm not saying that Frank is always wrong or blah, blah, but I think some of the comments he's made recently about the Ducks are just... It's just like, are you following? Are you watching? Are you paying attention? It's odd.
Well, I think it's more so along the narrative that's been built around this team overall, with the fact of, you had we talked about it a bunch, but the Dallas Aikens kind of media tour at the end of last year went during the playoffs and kind of really made it seem like people were buying that he wasn't necessarily the problem. And what this kind of the start of the season has gone to show is that this team is not as bad as they showed last year, which is what you and I harped on for so much last year. We did so many podcasts saying this team is not this bad. There's something going on here where this team is not this bad. And a lot of the narrative going on into this season was, well, it's the same team as last year. They're just going to be horrible. This is a basement dweller, yada, yada, yada. And what they're showing is that, no, that is not the team that they were last, or the team that they were last year is not indicative of who they are. And also, recognition of the fact that people did not understand the prospects that the Ducks had on the blue line. The fact that you had Jackson Lacombe coming into the team. The fact that you had Pavel Mintyukov come in and instantly make an impact. And the fact that he is not even mentioned, but Kevin Korchinski is mentioned, just kind of goes to show the lack of awareness at times of this Ducks system.
Well, look at the Ducks blue line. Like, this is my whole problem with the expectation that the Ducks would be the same as they were last year. The blue line is almost completely different.
Yeah.
Like this year's blue line has almost nothing to do with last year's blue line. And so this is why I try to get away a little bit from the comparing this team to last year's team narrative, because it's just a different team. I mean, you look at the depth of this team, you look at the fourth line, Brett Leason playing the way he has. I think a lot of the forward stuff you can attribute to better systems, better coaching. But a lot of the stuff on the back end, there's a huge coaching influence there. But these are also just different players. Like Radko Gudas wasn't there, Urho Vakanainen barely played, Ilya Lyubushkin wasn't there, Pavel Mintyukov wasn't there, Jackson Lacombe was barely there. Like Cam Fowler right now is on this team is the only regular from last year's blue line, and Jamie Drysdale wasn't there either. So it's just not an apples to apples comparison anyway.
Yep.
So here we are belaboring that point. We should probably talk about the games that occurred.
Yeah, and moving on real quick because we're going to talk about these games and how the Ducks played and get into it all. But one stat before we do all that I wanted to mention. This is brought up by Eric Stevens, and I think this is a very relevant point when we talk about kind of where the Ducks are currently. While even though their numbers may not be fantastic, I think part of it is a little bit of sample size theater. Eric Stevens put this out after the win last night. The Ducks' opponents are a combined 37-10-3 going into that game on Sunday.
Yeah, they haven't had a cakewalk schedule.
No, they have not. I mean, 37-10-3, and when you think about it, the Ducks had 6 wins going in, or 6 straight wins, 7 wins overall going into that game last night. Last night was 6 straight wins, so they had prior to that game they had 6 wins overall. So if they were playing teams that were 37-10-3, they're accountable for 3 of those regulation wins and all 3 of the overtime or 3 of those 10 regulation losses and the 3 overtime losses. Like, that is so impressive when you think about that and the teams that they've played and how much they've accounted for the losses that those teams they've played have had. And I think that just goes to show that this team has had to fight through a really tough start to the season, and they've come out with, while their numbers aren't fantastic, they're serviceable, and that is exactly what you want. And they've started to build an identity, build a culture. And the other good thing out of all this is Greg Cronin has not said these last games have been good enough. They need to play better.
I mean, even Troy Terry talked about it. I think Mason McTavish talked about it. Like, they all know that this isn't the standard, but there's also the simple fact that you're playing last night, yes, on the tail end of a back-to-back, but you're playing the defending Stanley Cup champions, who, to me, even though the Vegas Golden Knights lost and, may have been fatigued or whatever after destroying Colorado the night before, they still looked like Cup champs to me for most of that game. The Ducks really struggled with the Vegas Golden Knights' just relentless forechecking ability. I think, the game maybe you can point to as a little bit of a concern point is Arizona, where that's a team where we've seen the Ducks play well against, and that was not a strong effort from them. Now, the Ducks may point and say, well, that was the first game coming back from a long road trip. It's basically like a road game-ish for them. So that's why I'm just not really looking at overall numbers yet, because you almost have to tier it out. Like, what were the numbers in these specific circumstances? What were the numbers against these types of teams on this type of schedule? Like, it's still such a small sample that I don't look at the Ducks' current XGF percentage, which I think is like 46%, and say, that's the team that they are.
No.
And when they were at like 52% or whatever they were, I wasn't necessarily saying that's who they are. We're still kind of feeling it out as these games progress.
And real quick, though, I mean, as you mentioned that, I'm going to mention expected goals for percentage. The Coyotes have been good this year. 55% expected goals for percentage.
I'm aware.
So my point is that even though you mentioned, yes, the Coyotes, and that's a team they should be playing up to, the Coyotes are not a bad team. They're not.
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's just that the Ducks had a good performance against them before.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, the Coyotes are like, their underlying numbers are good. Their record is middling, but no, the Coyotes are, to me, the Coyotes are a good kind of, I would say, measuring stick for the Ducks, because I think that's kind of the tier that they could potentially be in, that they are in right now.
Yep. And with that being said, we should just jump into the game from last Wednesday.
Yeah, so I think the big story out of this game is Troy Terry kind of, what's the thing you guys always say, ketchup bottle?
That was a Tamus Lonnie quote.
Yeah, it might be time to retire that.
Okay.
Not the biggest fan.
I mean, there aren't that many glass ketchup bottles anymore.
Anyway, but Troy Terry getting a hat trick, and as much as as it's great for Troy to get a hat trick, I guess this is a little bit of a negative note to start off on, but I don't think he's just been playing all that well offensively lately.
Yeah, I mean, the story of this game was, I mean, obviously Terry had the hat trick finishing really well throughout that game, got his chances, and were able to put them in the back of the net.
Yeah.
But that was an interesting game because that was one where Ryan Strome was supposed to be in the lineup and then last second was ruled out sick. And so they made a couple of changes to the lineup where Max Jones was put with Carlson and Terry, and Zegras was placed with McTavish and Vetrano. And Jones, Terry, Carlson just really did not generate anything throughout the game. And so Terry ended up making, I mean, you look at the goals they scored. One was on the power play where he takes a really nice shot coming down the right side, is able to make a perfect shot. And the other goal comes on Pavel Mintyukov, which we'll get to a little bit also, having just one of the most dynamic plays I think I've seen live ever, and is able to go in and pick up the trash and bury it, which he deserves full credit on. And so the goals he scored weren't necessarily due to good 5-on-5 process. They came in non-5-on-5 situations, primarily. 3-on-3 overtime. The third goal was the Carlson goal that came at 5-on-5 with Terry taking the shot and tipping off Carlson's stick. But I would agree with that. I think that this was probably not the best process game for Troy Terry. I think overall he's been good. I think defensively specifically he's been excellent. So far, offensively, I think he's starting to find his way a little bit more.
Yeah, I have one note on that, and then I want to talk about the star of this game for me. So I think with Terry, I think that he's figuring out how to be an effective offensive player within an actual structured system. You know, if you think about Troy Terry under Dallas Eakins the last few years, it was a lot of just take the puck and go do whatever you want with it off the rush. Like now, because the Ducks are attacking in layers and there's other guys that can make plays on his line that are just as good, if not maybe better, playmaking wise, he's having to learn to utilize his teammates and it's not always just, hey, Troy, you know, go skate really fast down the wing, make a move and rip a shot. Like he still has that, and that's a valuable component of his game. But I think even Greg Cronin has talked about it with Terry that sometimes you want to see a little bit more give and go, a little more off puck. And that's just not something that Terry has had to develop over the last few years. So I think it's just a feeling out process. I'm not worried about him. The star of this game to me, though, I'm biased because I just did a video on it, but Pavel Mintyukov, just the amount of dynamic stuff that he did in this game, you alluded to it, the play where, you know, he kills a rush by the Coyotes, then gets the breakout going the other way, joins the rush, turns it into a 3-on-2, damn near scores all alone off the post, and Terry collects the loose change. Like, Mintyukov did so many different things in this game, both offensively, defensively, in transition. I mean, even forechecking at times. Like, he basically, like, Terry's first goal was off of a Mintyukov entry and forecheck. He's a defenseman, folks. Like, this guy, I've never seen a defenseman come into the NHL and look this good. I've never seen it.
He is so good. Like his ability to get up in the rush, and I mean, he set up the first goal also, right? Because you just talked about
the first two goals were basically because of him.
Yep, you had a fantastic video breaking it all down, and I mean, that second goal was just one of the most dynamic plays I think I've ever seen from a player, going from his D zone to offensive zone, breaking up a play with a beautiful check, separates the man from the puck with a very useful hit there, and then is able to get the puck up through the neutral zone, enters the zone, drops it off, finds a lane, and sets up a great chance once he's given back the puck, and ends up in the back of the net with Troy Terry cleaning up. And I mean, the first goal, I mean, on the power play, he's able to get in on the forecheck because, as you broke down perfectly, everyone else was flat-footed. If everyone else is flat-footed, someone has to get in there if you're going to dump it in. And that has to be the person with speed. And I think what we've seen as an issue, and I think Cam Fowler's been a great player for this team and is great at exiting the zone, but one of his traits that you'll notice a lot of times is he dumps it in and then just kind of circles back.
Yep.
He doesn't ever really go in and attack the puck afterwards. And that's something you see from Pavel Mintyukov right there, where he just dumps it in and goes right after it because he's the guy with speed, so he has to go do that. And knows, granted, it's on the power play, but he knows someone else is going to cover for him in that situation. And that's the thing is, anytime he's out there, it's fascinating to watch whoever's at forward essentially recognize where he's at and constantly kind of have to go back. And it is way more of a 5-man unit than it is forward and defense.
Yeah, he puts so much stress on the other team. You know, even when he gives it up. Like, this is what's most impressive to me about him is that, I mean, this isn't the most impressive thing. There's a bunch of impressive
There's
things.
so much. There's so much.
one of the things that really stands out to me, and this is something that popped up in preseason, and why I was kind of thinking, oh, like he might be already great, is that he's so smart without the puck offensively. So he's always threatening, even when he doesn't have the puck in the offensive zone. Like if he's the guy on the far side, on the weak side, if the puck's on the right and he's on the left, like he's trying to pinch up, he's trying to, create passing lanes, and that puts so much stress on a defensive unit. And he's just always doing that. Like his feet are never still. And then you pair that, you layer that with everything else. And it's just, I mean, I hate to be so, like, it feels almost wrong to be so, not hyperbolic, but just so glowing of a guy so early.
Yeah.
But the tape just doesn't lie. Like what he is doing out there it's just transcending anything that I thought was possible for him this season.
Yep. Completely agreed. So yeah. And then, I mean, anything else from this game? Because there is something I want to touch on also from it. I mean, Max Jones was
Leo
given...
Carlson scored. Good for
Leo
Leo.
Carlson scored with a great tip.
Yep.
Max Jones was given a glorious opportunity within this game. One of probably the best opportunities that he's had to be with
Max
Troy
Jones
Terry.
about to catch some strays?
He is definitely about to catch some strays. He was placed with Leo Carlson and Troy Terry. And just for reference, Troy Terry, Leo Carlson, and Trevor Zegras, if you look at the numbers for lines so far this year with the minimum time on ice of 20, they are the best line that the Ducks have had at 58.5 expected goals for percentage. This is excluding goals. This is just purely looking at shot production and where those shots are going to be coming from. They have controlled the expected goal share a whole lot better than any other line that the Ducks have had. Now, you could quibble with the fact that they haven't been the best offensive line. That, weirdly enough, actually includes Max Jones, to be fair. Adam Henrique, Jakob Silverberg, Max Jones at 3.58. But Vetrano, McTavish, Strome at 3.37. Carlson, Zegras, Terry at 3. The thing that line has done so well is limit chances against at 2.13. But you add Max Jones to that line, and it just absolutely craters everything. I think they were at like 5% going into the third period, expected goals for percentage. And you could just tell that while Max Jones, he puts the effort in, gets it on the forecheck, he just doesn't win the board battles well enough for that line to be able to get the puck back, to be able to support those guys in that situation. And I think that he's just someone that was put in this glorious opportunity and did not do anything with it, to be quite honest. Put on the first power play unit also, did not really do anything with it. And it was so much where he was taken off that line going down the stretch in the third period, and he went from the first line went from the first line to being a healthy scratch. And it's going to be very curious to see how this plays out from a global team perspective, because Brock McGinn is skating again.
Yeah.
And he's close to coming back. Ross Johnston, and I will give him credit for this, I will eat crow. He has been a lot better than I expected.
He's just been fine. Like he's been
fine.
Bad. Yeah.
And so the question's going to be, what happens when Brock McGinn comes back? Because Brock McGinn is for sure in the lineup. I think he's for sure got to be in this lineup. He's better than a lot of people. He's a really good penalty killer. And so I think Ross Johnston is the most likely guy to come out for Brock McGinn. But with that being said, someone has to go on waivers when that happens. Is it going to be Bo Grew? Is it going to be Max Jones? Because it's got to be one of those two players.
I mean, you know who it's going to be.
Or is it going to be Ross Johnston?
I think the two candidates are Johnston and Jones, but I would put Jones as the leader in the clubhouse right now.
You think Jones goes on waivers before Grew does?
Yes. Oh, 100%. I mean,
okay.
Grew still has potential.
At some point, Lundestrom comes back also, and so then another player has to go on waivers at that point.
Well, we'll worry about that when it comes. But I think for right now, like if you're the Ducks, like why would you put Grew on waivers before Max Jones?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
Grew has shown so much more this season to me than Max Jones.
Yep.
So that would just be unfair, honestly.
Okay. And the only other piece of information though that I do want to touch on from this game there's two things now that popped into my head. 3-on-3 overtime. Two things from that 3-on-3 overtime that are worth mentioning. Mm-hmm. One of them is Trevor Zegras. Zegras has weirdly become this not weirdly. He's been a polarizing figure with various different people for dumb reasons for a while now. And there are a lot of people that don't recognize how good he's been this season. And we've harped on it, so I don't want to sound like a broken record talking about how good Trevor Zegras has been when he only has 2 points in 11 games, but he has been excellent so far this year, and Greg Cronin even had a quote about how good he's been. But in this 3-on-3 overtime, there was, I think, one part of it where he was on the ice, and he did not have the puck at all. Arizona had the puck the entire time, but I think it was Matias Maccelli had the puck, and he was just with him stride for stride the entire way. Did not give him a shooting lane, did not give him a lane to the net, did not give him a passing lane. He was on him completely, and it was happening right in front of me where the Coyotes had that puck the entire time, did not get a dangerous look at all. And then when it eventually turns over, what does he do? He gets the puck, skates up to kind of break some pressure, dumps it back to the back behind his own net to, I think it was Jackson Lacombe, so that he can get off the ice and make a change. Like, that is, if you want to know what Greg Cronin wants from Trevor Zegras, sure, he wants him to score, he wants him to do some stuff, but that is the exact type of situation, exact type of play that he's going to want for him in 3-on-3 overtime.
Yeah, no, that heads up play by Zegras to, first off, like you were saying, the great defensive work, and then just that presence of mind to kill some time, get off while also maintaining possession like that. It's to your point. That's exactly what Greg Cronin wants, and it set up the eventual game-winning rush because off of that possession, the Ducks go down and score.
Yep, and Mason McTavish deserves a lot of flowers. He's been so good.
I'm kind of surprised we haven't talked about him yet.
I mean, I think that this game wasn't necessarily his most impactful, so that's kind of why. But I mean, that play he had in overtime.
Yeah.
That was just a high level, high IQ play.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you see him skate up the ice, and even if you go back and rewatch it, you can hear Brian Hayward say he needs to get going because he's kind of slow. And I can't remember who the Arizona defender or forward was on him, but he kind of slows down, puts his back to him, and does a little shimmy shake to essentially get around him and beat the guy off the line, and creates a 2-on-1, sets up a beautiful pass to Troy Terry, who nets it for the overtime winner with a hat trick. And that little play, I mean, it just goes to show the high level of skill that Mason McTavish has. He definitely has a bit more of the traditional hockey player that a lot of people think of with being a physical guy, that more hard player, but he has a high level IQ, high level skill also. And I think what's just so fun with this team right now is just they'll beat you in so many different ways, and the players all do it they're all high level, high skill players, but in different ways. And I think that makes them not only fun to watch, but also once they get going and this team becomes contenders, they're going to be really difficult to beat because they're going to be able to play a lot of different ways depending on whatever team they're playing.
Yeah, I think the through line with all these guys is that they're all really smart. They're all really smart players. They're all really great thinkers with the puck. And, I mean, Mason McTavish, like, we've seen him do it before, but that he's one of the best I've seen just at that subtle shot fake, head fake on a 2-on-1, just to get the goalie and the defenseman to get them to commit just a little bit more to him before he perfectly wires it across to his intended receiver. I mean, he did it on that play, and we've seen him do it multiple times this season, and it's just kind of it's emblematic of that whole play because he's always trying to manipulate, always trying to create options for himself. And yeah, he's, I wouldn't say he's been the Ducks' best player so far this season, despite the fact that he has a crazy amount of points, 13 points in 11 games, 6 goals. But maybe the most impactful just with his production and coming through at the right time, right place, right time. Like he's had an amazing start to the season.
Yep. All right. And so that was that game. And then we move on to the Sunday game.
Yeah. Should we take a little break, though, before we do that?
Yeah, let's do that. So this episode is brought to you by Green Chef. So Green Chef is a CCOF certified meal kit company. Green Chef makes eating well easy with plans to fit every lifestyle, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meals. They offer a range of recipes to suit your preference. So Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating clean. You can let Green Chef take the work out of eating clean this holiday season with chef-crafted, nutritionist-approved recipes featuring fresh ingredients with nothing artificial. Choose from recipes featuring lean proteins like turkey and sockeye salmon, barramundi, tilapia, scallops, and shrimp, certified organic, whole fruits, vegetables, and eggs, and plenty of whole grain options. And if you're looking to stock up on functional snacks and clean beverages to energize you through the holidays, shop our new green bundles, now available at Green Market, your one-stop shop for nutritious grab-and-go breakfast, including vegan options, brunch kits, wholesome lunches, ready-to-eat snacks, veggie sides, and more you can easily add onto your weekly order. And they also have options for every lifestyle. You can eat clean the easy way with recipes that help manage your weight and support your wellness goals without skimping on flavor. Feel your best with nutritionist approved recipes, including calorie smart meals under 650 calories, protein packed meals with at least 40 grams of protein on average per serving, science backed Mediterranean recipes, and flavorful plant rich vegan and vegetarian meals featuring certified organic whole fruits, vegetables, good for you grains, and plant-based proteins. And it's also sustainable. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions, as well as 100% of the plastics in every box. Plus, nearly all packaging materials are curbside recyclable in most areas in the U.S. And 100% of their seafood meats meet them on Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch rankings of certified best choice or good alternatives. And I mean, it's just super convenient and easy. They deliver everything you need to eat clean the easy way this November. Feel your best with chef-crafted, nutritionist-approved recipes packed with clean ingredients that support your healthy lifestyle and taste great too. Power through the bustling holiday season with their convenient step-by-step recipes, including wholesome dinners ready in 30 minutes or less, 10-minute lunches, grab-and-go lunches, and green bundles featuring clean snacks and functional beverages. Plus, cut down on meal prep with pre-portioned and prepped ingredients, including pre-measured sauces, spices, and dressings delivered right to your door. For Green Chef's best deal of the year, you can get $250 off. Yes, that's $250 off with the code CTP250 at greenchef.com/CTP250. Once again, for Green Chef's best deal of the year, you can get $250 off with the code CTP250 at greenchef.com/CTP250. Once again, that's Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well.
Okay, let's jump right back in here. Ducks, Vegas Golden Knights, Sunday night affair, 5 p.m. start, that classic time slot at Honda Center.
Yep.
The Ducks survived this one.
Yeah, and just briefly to touch on kind of going into the game, Vegas came into this game without a regulation loss. And there was a fun vibe going into this game at the arena because it almost felt like this was a measuring stick for this Ducks team, where from a fan perspective, is this Ducks team for real? Will they be able to hang with Vegas? Will they be able to maybe not hang at 5-on-5, but be able to be in the game with them? Or will this kind of set things right with kind of where the Ducks should be overall? Or are you allowed to kind of be excited and dare to dream in some ways about what this Ducks team could be? And the end result of it was just almost elation is the best way to put it.
Yeah. Well, I think the big headline going into this game, too, is Alex Killorn making his debut with the Ducks. And lucky for him, gets to debut in those excellent plum jerseys, plum and aqua.
You had to go there.
The official term is.
You had to go there.
The
Eggplant and jade.
Term.
Eggplant and jade.
Yeah, but Alex Killorn back on a line with Adam Henrique and Jakob Silfverberg, and I'm going to skip ahead here in the chronology and just say that I think Alex Killorn looked great, A, and B, I think he's going to help this team immensely. Like, that third line, there's a very strong case to me that the Killorn, Henrique, Silfverberg line was the Ducks' best line last night.
Yeah.
And, Killorn doesn't do anything fancy, but at the end of the day, I wrote this down and I keep saying it. Killorn is Killorn. Like, he is a pro's pro. He just does everything well enough, extends plays, wins battles, gets to the net, has a great shot, has a good nose for the net, and that is going to pay off big time this season, I think.
Yep, it 100% will. He looked really, really good, I think, in this game. I think we're gonna see him grow a little bit. I think there's just a calming vibe from him. I'm just going to use vibe a bunch.
Well, here's the thing is that, right now the Ducks have really had to rely on their top six.
Yes.
Carlson, Zegras, Terry, which I wouldn't say they had their best game last night. Nobody really had a great game.
No.
I mean, except maybe Pavel Mintyukov. But, that line was held in check because the Vegas Golden Knights are who they are. And then you have the second line of Vetrano, McTavish, Strome, which, was fine. But having a third line now where you have Killorn, who is just a great all-around player, and you put him next to Adam Henrique, and even Jakob Silfverberg, who can now chip in as a true support player, like that is a quality third line. Like that is no longer a third line that you just kind of put out there and you're happy with a draw. Like they can actually get out there, get some ozone time, keep things to the outside defensively, and here and there, like they created chances. Alex Killorn had one of was it Killorn or Henrique? But those two linked up for one of the best scoring chances of the game.
Yep.
So and they're going to play around with that configuration. I'm sure we're going to get questions about it, but his presence in this lineup is going to be huge, I think.
Yeah, and overall from this game, this definitely was not the Ducks' sharpest game. I think the first period was probably the roughest period that they had. You brought up a good point in our Discord last night that the Ducks were hemmed in their zone a lot, and so on the surface, it looks poor. I mean, from an XG perspective and a shot volume perspective, it also looks poor. But the Ducks did a decent enough job of keeping it to the outside. They didn't allow a whole lot of high danger chances outside of the couple of 2-on-1s they allowed, which ended up being a goal against.
But that's the thing, though, to just jump in really quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
The best chances they allowed were off the rush. The best chances they allowed were actually off of their own mistakes in the O zone. So their D zone structure, I mean, it wasn't infallible. Like they gave up chances, off the cycle. But when Vegas was really kind of putting it on the Ducks early, it was actually the Ducks making mistakes with the puck that was giving Vegas life offensively, not the Ducks making mistakes without the puck, which has not been the case for years.
Yep. And then, I mean, from a game flow perspective, this was a game where I felt like once the Ducks kind of were able to at least weather that first period a little bit, where they definitely were hemmed in their own zone the most, it felt like the second and third period, while being up and down, felt a bit more even overall for the most part. And that kind of bears itself out when you look at the difference between the end of the first period and the end of the game. It's somewhat even overall. And so that's a really good sign from this team that they're able to at least take a bad period, you're down a goal, and in some ways kind of throw that out a little bit. And they were able to generate their own chances, especially in the first beginning part of that second period. And they also had really good waves in the third period. And I think the other thing just about this team is we talk about kind of a lot of the different stats, all the different types of stuff, but there does have to be a belief in the system, right? And we saw last year without a belief in the system, what happens? There's breakdowns. What?
Without a system.
Oh, yeah. There's breakdowns. You're not able to generate offense. It almost feels like individual efforts are all there really can be. And in this game, it felt like they kind of trusted what they were going to do in the D zone throughout the game. And they were going to get their looks in the offensive zone, and they were going to capitalize on them when they could get them. And there was the Henrique goal to start off the third period was massive because that brings them within one.
Yeah.
A little bit of a bang play, a little bit
of a gift. Yeah.
A little bit of a gift, one where it's a weird deflection. And so that's one where maybe it's earlier in the season they weren't getting those bounces and now they are. And then the game tying goal came on a just brilliant play by Pavel Mintyukov. I had to go back and rewatch that last night because I didn't notice it. I thought it was kind of a deflection out or caught a skate, and that ended up at Sam Carrick. And then when you rewatch it, I did not realize that was an actual pass from Mintyukov. Like, that ends up on his stick, and he does a little toe drag to feed that puck into an area for Carrick. And puts it in for Sam Carrick, who's able to pull a really nice move on Logan Thompson and buries it in the 5-hole. And Sam Carrick, that is not a fourth liner's move to pull.
That was a silky move to tie the game up.
I mean, that felt like essentially, he was a scorer in the AHL, and you could kind of see that he was with how that play ended up going there. And he doesn't get a whole lot of chances to show it, but wonderful play from him there. And then they end up getting the game-winning goal with Mason McTavish just finding pucks and ending up doing what he does, which is scoring clutch goals.
Yeah, that was also a bit of
bang play.
Yeah, like it wasn't this amazing kind of teamwork or team play goal, but it was right place at the right time. But a couple things, like to go back to the tying goal, what was interesting is that Mintyukov was actually, so before that play happens, Mintyukov actually does a give and go off of the blue line, and he gets behind his defender, and he tries to create an outnumbered situation in the slot. The Vegas Golden Knights recover the puck, but the Ducks are able to knock it back in. And as Vegas is coming out, Mintyukov is still back there because he had activated off the blue line, so he's able to get his stick in there and then just whack it over to Carrick. So in a way, all of that happened because, again, Mintyukov is just so aggressive in moving off the blue line, and right there, it's not a spot you would traditionally expect a defenseman to be, but like he's just everywhere. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is that the Vegas Golden Knights, to me, clearly had an intention to make life miserable for the Ducks' young D. They were basically sending one forechecker to pressure the puck, and then as soon as you show any sign of weakness as the puck carrier on the zone exit, they would send another guy. They were to put it in kind of simple terms, they were basically double teaming the puck carrier on exits. And the Ducks did a good job, I think, of adjusting to that as the game went on. Quicker passes or just skating it out, because their initial game plan was clearly changed. But also that style that Vegas was bringing, it's hard to keep up for 60 minutes, especially when you played the night before. Yeah. So it was a combination of all those things. And, I mean, probably the first star of the game, though, actually absolutely the first star of the game is John Gibson.
100%. John Gibson.
This was his best game of the season.
Yep. And, I mean, you don't like that he had to get rest due to going out injured against the Penguins, but, I mean, getting essentially almost a full week off for him ended up paying dividends because he came into this game, was rested, and it showed. He played fantastic, made some amazing saves. You and I were talking about it before we went live, actually, and a lot of people put praise on the breakaway save that he had on the power play. I think it was at the start of the third period to stop Jack Eichel, which the Ducks then scored after on that same power play. But there was a save later in that period where he ends up having a really nice push out and gets close to, I can't remember the Vegas shooter, and kind of does a weird split situation where he ends up making a glove save. And that save, where to be that athletic, to get that push out there where, I mean, you were saying that.
I think he overcommitted.
Yeah. Yep.
But he recovered very well.
Yes. That's okay. Well, and that's where the beauty of John Gibson is. And there is a contrast between John Gibson and Lucas Dostal. Lucas Dostal is going to be a little bit more controlled. He's going to have that same type of push, but he's going to be a bit more controlled and not overcommit to situations. John Gibson is going to overcommit at times, but he has the athletic ability to make up for that with some great saves. Twinkie Boy in our YouTube chat saying it was against Ben Hutton, that save.
Yeah, the Golden Knights have a lot of guys, Ben Hutton not being one of them, where I'm like, I've just never heard of this person.
Yeah.
I guess that's the cap world that they're living in. But
yep.
Yeah, Gibson had a great game. He made a bunch of just really difficult saves. He also had a really good save on an Eichel one-timer down the stretch. I think that the goal that he let in off of Eichel's kind of wrist shot down the wing, it's tough for me because on one hand you could say, oh, that was a short side shot and he's got to have that. But, Eichel basically did his kind of best, like Austin Matthews, Connor Bedard impression there, where he did change the angle of the release.
Yep.
And just the amount of force, the amount of power in that shot as
from that close,
as the angle is, like, I was thinking about this the other day. I have no idea how any goalie can stop these shots where the angle changes and the guy can rip it like 80 miles an hour or whatever. Like, I actually don't know how they make those saves. Like, it's almost impossible. And so although it looks kind of weak because it's short side, and as a goalie, like, that's just a cardinal sin, no short side goals. It's just a great play. So all in all, like, I think Gibson, this is what you love to see from John Gibson, because I think thus far this season, he's been good enough. He hasn't ever had to really be truly great, but now on a night where the team kind of needs him to be great, he is that, and he basically gets them a win. And I think that's exactly the kind of balance you want to see from John Gibson. And, maybe part of it, like you were alluding to, is the fact that he has a true kind of, I would say, foil now in Dostal, who can actually hold up his end of the bargain, and he doesn't have to play as much, doesn't have to carry as much of a workload. Like,
yeah,
the Ducks goaltending situation has been an underratedly really good driver of success so far.
And it seems like Greg Cronin is just going to kind of keep with every other game. Because if you think back, Pittsburgh was a Gibson game last Monday. Then by that logic, Wednesday should have been a Dostal game anyways, which he started even though he played 2 periods against Pittsburgh. Gibson didn't back up in that game. Stalock was the backup. And then Gibson comes back and he plays the Sunday game, which would have been his start anyways if they were doing back-to-back. So I just hope they continue this. Who cares? I think that we don't see this enough where you're giving your goalies a rest. I think you don't need to play into who's hot as much as you should.
Well, it's also working.
Yeah,
like
true.
I think they're getting the most they really can out of both goalies. Like, because if you think about it, John Gibson is a goalie who has been overworked pretty much his entire career in Anaheim.
Yep.
And needs a break. And Lucas Dostal is also a goalie who is unproven with a high workload at the NHL level. So it kind of works for both goalies to kind of play this tandem style. Now we'll see if they stick with it. I don't want to crown the Ducks quite yet because they have a whole lot of bad past to make up there with Gibson, but so far, so good.
Yep. All right. Anything else that you want to cover about this game?
No, I think things will come up via questions.
Okay. The only other thing that we do need to cover is Tristan Luneau, and we can cover that kind of quickly.
That's right.
Tristan Luneau was scratched in, I believe, 6 straight games, and the rule is if you're scratched in 5 straight games, you're able to be sent down on a conditioning loan, regardless of if you're AHL eligible by the AHL-CHL agreement, and you can do that for 2 weeks. So I believe that was last Wednesday when that happened. Maybe it was sooner, or I'll need to double check that. I actually think it was on the weekend. Doesn't matter. Basically, he'll be in San Diego with the Gulls for 2 weeks. And then he has to come back up. And because he does not turn 20 until 2024, he cannot go back down to the Gulls until his AHL or his junior season is over.
Yeah, and so now, he's going to get the stretch in the AHL, and I think at some point he's going to go play in the World Juniors probably, assuming he's on that team, and then go back to junior and finish out the season there. So this is basically what the Seattle Kraken did, not quite exactly the same, but this is similar to what the Kraken did with Shane Wright last season. Yeah. And I have a couple different layers of thought to this. So
hit me with it.
My first layer is that I think Tristan Luneau just didn't look NHL ready in the games he played. It's just one of those things where, ball don't lie. Like if you don't look like you're ready, you probably, if it smells like it, if it looks like it, it means you probably aren't ready. And I don't think he was. The other layer is that I think there's 2 ways this can go. One is that Tristan Luneau was the QMJHL Defenseman of the Year last year. Arguably, he doesn't really have that much to go back and learn and prove at the junior level, arguably. Another argument is that, if he goes back to junior, and he will, going back to junior allows him to still grow the creativity in his game, kind of expand his game in a way that he just can't really do at the pro level. At the pro level, it's a lot of filing down. It's, okay, you have your strengths, you have your big skills, now let's kind of polish you down to the point where you're a contributor at the pro level. And essentially, with the way this is going to shake out, the Ducks are going to get, I think, the best of both worlds, where he's going to go learn. He's already played a little bit. I think he's already played 3 games in the AHL by now, playing in Charlotte this weekend. So he's going to get some of that pro exposure, some of the stuff that he probably needs to incorporate into his game. And then down the line, he's going to go back to junior, kind of spread his wings a little bit more. But I think, initially I really wasn't a fan of him being on the team at all. But the more I've kind of thought about it, talked to different people who've watched him a lot more than me about it, I think there's a good case that at least, this is kind of going to be a best of both worlds situation for him, moving towards his next season. He's going to get, to dip his toes in a little bit of everything.
Yep. And I think one thing worth mentioning is Greg Cronin was asked, or I don't know how it got brought up, but essentially asked
brought
about
it up
Pavel
on his own.
It was about Pavel Mintyukov and how he's able to give up the puck. And he's we're able to, he doesn't necessarily have the same junior tendencies that, to be quite frank, Zellweger has, where he tries to do it on his own. And you've been watching the goals a bit, and Zellweger has done a much better job, I think, from what you've told me, of dishing the puck off, making those types of plays in that situation and learning that. And he mentioned Tristan Luneau with the Ducks did do that. And so he's like, those are junior tendencies because you're able to beat guys, but once you get to the NHL, you're not able to do that. And so I think part of this is that if he goes back to junior, he's just going to kind of not do that same stuff because they will give him some marching orders for things to work on. But you do start to go back to those habits because that has worked in the past. And so I think with Tristan Luneau, sending him to the goals, letting him play 2 weeks there before going to World Juniors, gives him some more games that are in the pro level, but less high leverage and where he can potentially thrive and learn those types of things.
Yeah, I actually think that this situation is the best of both worlds because I think that he can still develop in junior.
Yes.
I think he can still add to his arsenal there. Because the thing with junior is that it's like what you said about the AHL, but even to a stronger degree. There's less pressure. You're away from the pro limelight. You can try stuff that you're not going to be able to try in the NHL. And yeah, like there is an argument that, those habits could end up costing you, but I think that's how we got Pavel Mintyukov. Like that's the way that he was playing in junior, especially with Saginaw and to another degree, to a different degree with Ottawa, that kind of shaped the player that he is now. And getting to the pro level, you have all those layers, you have all those skills, and now it's just let's file you down, let's refine you to the point where, you're able to kind of do it all. And so I like this plan for Luneau. The more I've thought about it, I'm excited to watch him. May or may not be putting together a Luneau video as we're speaking. I have AHL TV in another window as we're talking here, but yeah, it's always fun, I think, to see the different development plans for different players. How the Ducks have treated one player hasn't really carried over to the next. It seems like each plan is really individualized to that player. Like even going back to last year where Olin Zellweger gets to camp and he doesn't even make it to the end of camp. They just sent him back to junior really early. So interesting to follow for sure.
Yep. All right. Want to get to questions?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll start with our Discord, and then I have 2 DMs from Twitter. Then we'll get to Twitch and YouTube. So Lactic said, for both of you guys, what modern player can be non-Duck do you think would be most similar to if you were an NHL player, or who would you want to model your game after?
Oh, I remember this question. My answer for this is Nikita Kucherov. Because I'm not very fast. I like to think I'm a more cerebral player, and I can get a little feisty at times. And also, Nikita Kucherov is one of the best playmakers to ever play. So
I'll go with
not a bad player to model your game after.
I will go with Martin St. Louis because I'm short.
Hey, you know what? I gotta respect that.
Zuzle said, "Did Jake throw his hat for Terry's hat trick?" This may be controversial. No, I did not. I love my hats too much. And I was wearing one that they're expensive and I have a lot of emotional attachment. So I've thrown hats in the past. And the last time I did, I deeply regretted doing it because that was a hat that I was not able to find afterwards and will never be able to find again because it was a one-time Ducks hat. So after that, I've been scarred. Ryan said, if Max Jones is put in the AHL for 5 years, does he come out the other side looking like Sam Carrick?
I don't know, man. I think if he's in the AHL for 5 years, he might not be coming back.
Yeah. Steve Ruchin's Stan account said, how bad are the Sharks this year compared to last year's Ducks?
I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I think the Sharks this year are just as bad. Like the Ducks last year were just as bad. They just didn't have these 10-goal games. They had a lot of 6-0, 7-0 losses. The Ducks just had John Gibson and Lucas Dostal, and like Mackenzie Blackwood and Capo Kakinen haven't been awful for the Sharks, but they just not good enough to cover up that mess.
Yep. Shake and Wing said, when will McTavish be named captain? What do you put the odds are on McTavish being the captain?
I think it's 50-50, him and Troy Terry.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Doom Grouser said, things are looking pretty desperate in Edmonton right now, particularly in goal. Conversely, the Ducks have two good goaltenders in Dostal and Gibson. It's Edmonton offered to trade Campbell for Gibson. What would it take to make the Ducks agree? Does an unprotected 2024 first-round pick get the deal done? Set aside any issues with trade protection.
Oh, man, this is a thought-out question. Does it get it done on the Duck side?
What would the Ducks have to get back in return
to make it worth it? I mean,
yeah.
What's Jack Campbell's contract?
I think it's like 3 more years, isn't it?
I mean, Jack Campbell's not good.
He is not good at all.
He is not good at all. Yeah, he's got 3 more years, $5 million. and Gibson has
I think like four more years.
More than that. No, Gibson only has 3 more years.
Okay, so it's the same term and close to the same money.
It's a 1.4 million difference.
Close, yeah. You could retain if you needed to.
So because it's so kind of apples to apples contract wise, I think that helps the Ducks.
Yeah.
Because Gibson becomes less of a negative value asset. I mean, would I take the Oilers' first round pick just the Oilers' first round pick, Jack Campbell for John Gibson? I think you can probably get more.
Yeah, I think it would have to be more than just an unprotected first.
Yeah, like maybe a prospect.
The question is, I don't know their prospect. I don't think their prospect pool is that great.
Xavier Bourgault, Bo Akey, who I know that some of our Discord folks loved. I know Mitch Brown loved in the draft. But I'd probably a prospect, a pick, and Campbell, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know if that's the.
I don't know if that. I think that's what it would take. I don't know if that's the optimal use of your team, though.
Yeah, I'm also just not convinced that like this whole Edmonton doom spiral is actually going to last.
Yeah,
like, it's a lot of just kind of narrative right now. It's just been 10 plus games, so I don't know.
Yeah,
but interesting thought though.
Olaf is Berserker said, despite the win streak, how soon until we should start to worry about the 5-on-5 expected goal trend?
I mean, here's the thing. Like we were just talking about very briefly, like these numbers are so prone to just completely changing overnight. So I'm just not really going to care about anything numbers-wise until like 20-ish games.
I think prior to the Pittsburgh game, they were top 10, and now they're in the 20s.
Yeah, so let's just monitor it, but I'm not dismissing it out of hand, but I'm just not really getting worked up about it.
Yeah, I think after 20 to 25 games. Give me a quarter of the season.
Yeah.
O'Lally17 said, why do the Ducks always put Zegras in the box for bench minors / goalie penalties, etc.? I know he doesn't kill penalties, but there's been times where the Ducks were tied late in the game, he served the penalty. If the game goes to 4-4, now you can't play one of your best players.
I actually don't know. I don't know. And I know exactly what he's talking about. I don't know.
I think it is. I mean, I think the reason why they're doing it is specific of he doesn't kill penalties, so he's not going to be someone going out there. But I mean, put Ross Johnston there. I mean, I guess maybe the other logic is he'll jump out of the box at the end of a PK and potentially get a breakaway, a la Mason McTavish.
Yeah,
that is probably the actual reason, is that if you're going to put someone in there to break out of the box and potentially get a breakaway, you want someone like Trevor Zegras and not a Ross Johnston there.
Damn. Is Ross Johnston ever going to get a nice word out of you?
I legitimately said I'm eating crow on him.
That's not saying something nice about him. That's just making it about you.
Ross Johnston is not going to be killing penalties. He is not going to be out there in 4-on-4 hockey.
Damn, just so brutal.
Is it?
Anyway, let's keep this train rolling.
Jesse4509 said, when it comes to trades, who on the Ducks is untouchable?
I mean, Leo Carlsson to me, and honestly, it might just be Carlsson and Mintyukov at this point. That might be it.
I think Carlsson, Mintyukov,
unicorn.
Carlsson, Mintyukov, Zegras, McTavish.
No, I think it's just 91 and 34.
Fair. I mean, I think that,
like, if someone calls me and asks for Leo Carlsson, I'm just hanging up.
Yeah.
If someone calls me and asks for Pavel Mintyukov, I'm hanging up. If someone calls and asks for Mason McTavish, Trevor Zegras, any of those guys, like, I'm probably not going to do it, but I'm going to listen at least.
Fair. I think I wouldn't necessarily listen on Zegras and McTavish, but fair. Brad said, it's clear that Cronin's style and strategic understanding of the game has benefited the team immediately. Which Duck do you think has benefited the most?
Oh, that is a great question, and I saw it earlier. I mean, I will give you 3 names. One is Pavel Mintyukov. Like, I think that the Ducks, they're allowing him to play a style that I don't think every team is necessarily willing to kind of live with this early in his career. And then the other 2 are guys that we really crapped on a lot last year, but Vetrano and Strome, they have just looked like different players to me under the system.
I mean, that's the biggest game changer so far for this entire Ducks team, is those 2 being reliable second liners, because I feel like we weren't even talking about either of them as being top 6, top 9 players. And the fact that it's not smoke and mirrors necessarily. Sure, Vetrano's shooting at an insane percentage, but there's good underlying process for both of those guys there. And
they've looked good.
Yeah, they definitely have. Let's see. Goose said, do we see McTavish elevated to the first line to allow Leo Carlsson to play with a more seasoned line?
No, I think keep the balance as it is. It's looking good.
I mean,
it's working well. And I think Leo's line works to his strengths. So I don't really see the need
Zegras,
there.
Karlsson, Terry have been really effective. Like, they don't have the goals to match, but I think, Greg Cronin had some quotes today about Trevor Zegras specifically about how he's been good defensively, analytically, he's been good. And the goals are just going to come eventually. And he's like, he just needs to keep doing what he's doing. He's getting a lot of high danger chances, and they're going to go in the net. And he's like, once they go in the net, then this won't even be a conversation we're having.
Yeah. So much of the Zegras narrative is just based on points.
Yep.
But if you watch him play, the chances are happening.
This is the best 11-game stretch, I think, of his career.
11. His number.
There you go. Didn't even do that on purpose. Brad said, are there any changes you would make to any of the top 3 lines when McGinn returns?
Maybe put McGinn instead of Silverberg on the third line.
Maybe.
And here I am dumping on 33 yet again, but that might be the only tweak that I make.
Yep. He said Vegas has Cronin at plus 5,000 to win the Adams. Thoughts?
I don't gamble.
Bet on it if you're a gambling man, because if the Ducks somehow make the playoffs, he will win the Adams. By the way, want to give a shout out right now. Chubbs Peterson gave us a $2 super chat. McTavish, next captain, no doubt. Rudy and Felix are the GOATs.
Shout out to you, Chubbs.
Shout out, Chubbs. Thank you so much. Tulsa said, where do you think Killorn ends up in the lineup?
I think that he probably moves up to the second line at some point.
I think when Karlsson goes out, he ends up with Zegras and Terry.
I don't even think about the lineup without Karlsson. I base all my answers with Karlsson in the lineup.
It's going to happen at some point this week, so there's that.
Well, Karlsson's going to play. Presumably he's going to play every game, like at some point. So
sure,
this is just like not
sure.
I don't care.
And then he said, should Silverberg be on the fourth line at this stage in his career?
Silverberg just needs to be in a position to succeed. And right now, playing with Adam Henrique and Alex Killorn, he's in a position to succeed.
Yep.
But, if fourth line ideally is probably best, though.
Puff said, is it telling that management isn't pushing a Zegras needs confidence agenda like they did with Terry a few seasons back?
A lot has changed.
A lot has definitely changed. Goose said, what does a Ducks trade package for Leon Draisaitl look like?
Just everything.
Yeah, a lot.
Everything.
Dalton Key said, do you believe?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, I do. Let me ask you this. This is a question from Jake Rudolph. What do you put the odds at the Ducks making the playoffs?
For half a second, I was like, wait, who's Jake Rudolph? Like, that actually crossed my mind. I thought that was like a real, like, that was a person you were referring to. That wasn't you. The odds right now, I'm going to go like 40-60.
Yeah.
Like 40% chance.
Way higher than I thought it would be.
They're playing well.
They're playing well, and they've bagged all these points. Like, you don't give up points for the games that you've won.
They're out here bagging. Tagging.
Jesse 4509 said, who wins the cup first, Ducks or Habs?
Next question.
Okay. Follow up from Steve Ruch in Santa Count.
It's probably the Ducks.
Will the Ducks match the Habs for the amount of cup wins in the next 50 years?
I hope I get to watch all those next 50 years. Probably not, though. That's a lot of cups. They'd have to win a cup every other year.
Yeah, no. Terry Save just said, based on what you've seen so far in 11 games, what are your trade deadline moves with our contract year players?
Man, that's so tough. Give me 11 more games.
Okay.
I'm punting.
I will say, you know what? Screw it. Keep them. Your own rentals. Rentals.
Okay.
That playoff run with that experience for them could be way more useful than that additional pick.
Even a playoff chase. Forget a playoff run. Like, just play games that matter.
At a certain point, the Ducks have a shit ton of assets already. That experience could be more useful than those extra assets.
Yeah, like that extra second round pick on a guy who might not play for another. It's the whole argument. So.
Yep. Steve Rich in Santa Account said, with Killorn's return to the lineup and the Zegras, Karlsson, Terry line doing a lot of good things, but not exactly producing results on the board, is it time to split up that line?
No.
No.
We need to stop living in points world.
Yep. That line has been fantastic.
Points world will get you killed.
Jesse 4509 said, when does Zegras' lack of point production become an issue?
Get out of points world. Watch. Watch.
If he does not have like a decent amount of points and is not impacting goals by maybe the 40 game mark, I will start being way more concerned.
Yeah, like at a certain point, you do, like, of course you are concerned. I'm not just dismissing it, but I would be concerned. I will only be concerned if there's just no process. As long as there's a great process, I'm just going to keep believing.
Yep. Ducks Dragonaut said, what have you noticed that the Ducks are doing differently on special teams to have such a sharp turnaround of both the PK and power play?
Is this like in season or from last season?
I think last season.
I mean, better players, for one. PK specifically, like their system is much better. So far this season on the power play, like I think they're still figuring it out. So I wouldn't really call it a sharp turnaround, but just more talent. I mean, Pavel at the point, Leo Carlsson there, like that's going to make a big difference.
Yep. Goose said, at what point does Zegras switch back to center?
I mean, he plays center like when Leo Carlsson's not in the lineup, and he still takes a bunch of faceoffs. He's still taking a decent amount of faceoffs. So I don't know. He might never become like, he might never go back to full-time center.
Yeah. Sky Paul said, now that they are on a 7-game win streak, is it 7 or 6?
It's 6. It's not 7.
Okay. How has your point prediction changed? What is your point prediction now? And do the Ducks make the playoffs?
I mean, I'm still going to stick with that kind of what I said last podcast, which is like low 80s.
I'm going high 80s to low 90s.
My thing is they're going to lose some of these games that they're winning right now. And so it's going to even out, and they're going to stay on this kind of 80-ish point path.
I think mid to high 80s. I'll go there. How about that? DJ Phoenix or PHX32 said, thoughts on Krona as overall system so far?
2 thumbs up.
Very, 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 very good. All right. You got more time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, let's do 5 questions.
Okay. So no Twitter questions then? We're skipping Twitter?
No, let's skip Twitter.
Okay.
Sorry.
So for everyone people on Twitter, I think it was 2 questions, maybe at the end. We'll see. But for people in the YouTube chat or the Twitch chat, please start throwing your questions in. But if you're listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast services, you can find us each and every time we do this live on Mondays at 8 p.m. at twitch.tv/CrashPond, where if you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month. And it does help out more than you can imagine. You just have to hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us there to get notified when we go live. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, if you have a YouTube account, and I know everyone listening has a YouTube account, go find our Crash the Pond channel there, like our videos, subscribe to our channel. We have a way to support us there if you want. You can give us super chats like Chubbs Peterson, different ways to support us over there. So we got this question from Ducks saying two questions for you, all in your guys' favorite categories predictions. Does the streak continue tomorrow, and how many points do you think Zegras will get over the next 10 games?
I'm going to go with 6 points for Zegras in the next 10.
And does the streak continue tomorrow?
They play Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Let's go with a get-right win for the Ducks. Like, even though, yes, they have been winning, I think they have a better kind of overall game tomorrow and continue it. Yep.
I'm going to go yes, and I will say Zegras gets, screw it, 10 points in 10 games.
Okay, there you go.
Why not? Allison asks, do you think it's possible that Zegras gets tired of playing wing?
I think he would get tired of it if he was playing like with. I don't want to throw any bottom sixers under the bus. So I'll just say I think he would get tired of it if he was playing on a line that wasn't, generating offense. But I mean, he's playing with Leo Carlsson and Troy Terry. Like, he's in a great position. He's still taking faceoffs. So. And he's even talked about loving playing with Leo Carlsson. Like, I just think that it would only come into play if he was on a shitty line. Basically.
And he mentioned it also when asked about playing wing, and he said last year I never got to play with a center that was the same handedness as me when I was or play wing with a center that was same handedness as me. So he's like, I really wanted to play with McTavish, and that never happened because him and I think the game the same. So I'm able to go to spots where I know he's going to be looking for. And so that same type of deal could happen here. I think that's a really, really smart point that Trevor Zegras had, and something that he probably looks for in a center that he would be playing with. And you look at all the time he was at wing, it was never in that situation. Ray Gonzalez said, do you think Akins and Grant opened a food truck, and what would they sell? I got nothing.
I'm not going to answer that one because
Okay.
my opinion is not suitable for work.
Michael Bosch McNabb said, do the Ducks attempt to give Kane a shot at a very low cost?
Nah.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's not going to be a low cost. I don't think
that-
Kane
that,
will want to
uh,
come to the Ducks.
That goose is cooked.
Yeah. Lewis said, can Felix go a day without using the McDonald's police gif? That's just for Discord people.
So if you're in our Discord, you know that I've grown an affinity for a certain GIF, and no, I'm not going to go a day without it just because you asked that.
Yeah, and that's it for questions. We have 2 from Twitter. You want me to do them?
Sure.
All right. Adam Broll said, the way that Carlson's been playing in this short window, do you think he's proven he can play in the NHL, and do you think he's here to stay?
Wait, who?
Carlson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the plan.
Yep. And Chris Kober said, what do you guys think is the difference between Verbeek setting up a load minimum plan for Carlson but not Mintyukov? Seems to me like the player with less senior level experience, fewer games played last year, and a more demanding position with Mintyukov would be more likely to need load management early in his career. Is it just the age difference, or maybe that he just looks more ready than Leo so far?
I honestly don't have a great answer for that. I don't know.
I think the age difference is probably a big one. I think the fact that Mintyukov is just a year older than Leo Carlson probably does that. I mean, it could just be that Carlson, they thought he really needed to work on adding the extra pounds there, and Mintyukov did that last year, and so they think he's more physically ready for the entirety of the NHL season. But yeah, it's definitely tough to come up with an answer.
I also just
why.
don't think it really matters.
Yeah, fair.
I feel like people use that to kind of discredit what they're doing with Leo. I'm not saying this person is, but I've seen that come up, and it's just kind of a red herring. So
Yep. All right, I have a softball actually, so we'll end with this one. Allison said, any prospects you're excited about making the show in the coming years?
I mean,
Olin Zellweger.
Tristan Luneau is the first that comes to mind because we were just talking about him.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zellweger, Luneau.
Zellweger.
It's kind of fun that we haven't seen Zellweger yet in the NHL because we still have that to look forward to.
Yep.
But yeah, there's still a lot of good players on the way. So this train is not yet all the way arrived.
I mean, we're definitely going to, I think, get a Zellweger cameo at some point this year. I don't think he goes the entire season without playing a game for the Ducks.
Maybe not. I don't know. I honestly
Okay.
don't know.
All right. That'll do it.
I do want to address a couple things, though.
Okay.
Some very important things that came up. D-Rock asked me, why do I not like 100 Grands? And that's the candy, for those who don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I think that is because it's not good. It's really, really bad.
They're so delicious.
It tastes like crap.
They are the best Halloween candy.
I've never eaten crap of any species, but that's what I think what it would taste like.
It's so good. It's so good.
It tastes crappy.
It's so good.
D-Flow asks, if lunch is consumed before 11 a.m., is it really lunch? And I'm going to give some flowers to our man Lou here and say, you know what? It all depends on your own schedule. If 11 a.m. makes the most sense for your lunchtime, go for it. Who's to say? Why are we imposing mealtime norms on other people? So shame on Flo for that. And
yep.
Jack asked, who would be better on the first line, Max Jones or Max Janes? I think
he photoshopped his face on Max Jones. So there's that.
At this point, it could be either.
It looks like Bob might have had a question, but you know what? We'll skip it.
Yeah, Bob likes to whine and moan and then be like, haha, just kidding.
Yeah.
So can never really tell with him. Love you, Bob. All right, well, I think I'm all done here.
Yep.
On that note, thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate you guys. We hope that the good times keep rolling. If you want to support our show and keep it, growing, thriving, and, live, laugh, loving, there's a couple different ways for you to do that. The number one way is to go check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashthepond. Link will be in the show description. For $1 a month, you get access to our patrons-only Discord server. You get to connect with other diehard Ducks fans. It's honestly the best. We talk about it all the time on the show. It's a great community. Join it. For $5 a month, you get access to 2 bonus podcasts a month and the Discord, and we are now adding YouTube videos there, private, exclusive YouTube videos. So it's kind of like the player breakdowns we have on our current channel, but I think they're going to be whatever you guys want. So if you guys want a prospect video in the AHL or a specific NHL player, it's going to be very responsive to whatever you guys want. That's for $5 a month. Go to patreon.com/crashthepond. You can leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also subscribe to us on Spotify. Check out our shop, crashthepond.com/shop. We are selling t-shirts. We are Vibes HC. Join the revolution.
I am wearing the shirt, and I will model it for anyone watching this while you keep going.
Let's see it. Let's give us the twirly bird. Oh yeah, Anaheim Vibes. You can see it there. Great logo. It's just so good. The palm tree and the hockey stick. It's the best. We've got different colors. It's got the plum and aqua / plum and royal purple / eggplant and jade.
Wait, plum and royal purple?
It's just the best. Honestly, people have been really loving these shirts. We've been getting some great feedback. Apparently, they're really comfortable.
They are soft. It is very, very comfortable. All the shirts on the website are actually the same material.
You're being asked to strip on the stream right now.
Yeah.
This isn't that kind of stream.
No, this isn't.
Go find that elsewhere.
Go to our Patreon and subscribe to the $15 tier, maybe.
Wow.
But all the shirts on the website are really comfortable. They're all the same material. There's a long sleeve version of the shirt. Also,
that's right.
With the way our print on demand stuff works, if you have any requests, whether it's a long sleeve, things like that, there's no certain amount of orders that we have to do to get them printed. So I can pretty easily and pretty quickly make the design on anything that you want. So reach out to me if you want it on a sweatshirt. I can do it on a tank top, anything like that. If you want it, I can add it to our shop so that you can order it. And we can go from there. And yes, as Felix, I think you mentioned, hats. We're working on hats where we have some sample orders coming in soon. We want to take a look at them to make sure they are the highest qualities before we put them on there for you all. So it is up to the standards that we have for hats.
We want to get our heads in them. So
yep,
we'll see.
Yep.
Pause. Someone is saying in the chat, do not talk to me before I've had my coffee, and honestly, that's a pretty accurate statement about me. So
I'm being asked if it can be on a bikini. I think there actually is an option.
If you want, hey, ask and you shall receive. We're men of the people.
DB Lowry, I'm going to make this right now, and now you have to buy it. There you go. This is what you did to yourself.
People want flex fit hats. Anyway, on that note, also find us on social media channels, Instagram, whatchamacallit? What's that one thing called? TikTok, YouTube, X. We're on it all. Search for Crash the Pond. Search for our names. We'll be there. Hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Sorry. Episode. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good one.
Bye.